Welcome, everyone. My name is Monica Higgins, and I am a Title I Part A as well as a Title I Part D program consultant for the Kentucky Department of Education. And happy Columbus Day to everyone. If you are interested, it is Thanksgiving Day in Canada today. So it is a federal holiday. Um, Before we get started, are there any updates that DJJ or DOC would like to share, or any reminders? And we also have DOC coordinators on the call as well today. So it's not just DJJ, it's some DOC Department of Correction coordinators on here as well for the update. And so, Lachina, it looks like you have your hand up. If you could just go ahead and come off mute and unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, first of all, good morning, everybody, and thanks for the information, Monica, about Thanksgiving in Canada. That was cool. I know today we have some updates and reminders in our training for child count, but just wanted to remind everybody to get those revisions turned in for the GMAP applications for this school year. If your application has been returned back to you, please today make it a priority to return those back to us so that we can get those all cleared up. And I think mostly everybody's done with performance reports, but I'll let Monica cover some of that as well. But I just wanted to make sure I put that plug out there. If it's been returned to you and you have any questions, contact me, and I'll be sure to help you out with that today. Thank you. Thanks,
Yes.
Monica.
You're welcome, and thank you so much, Lachina, for the update. And again, I just wanted to reiterate exactly what Lachina just mentioned. If you have not received an approved application for fiscal year 2024 or fiscal year 2025, please make sure that you have an updated KDE approved application as well as performance report, because we're getting ready to move into child count soon. So we want to make sure that we have approvals for the application and performance report ready to go before we move into child count. And Karen, for DOC, are there any updates that you would like to share? And that's okay if you don't.
At this moment, maybe in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you so much for joining us today, Karen, and having representation for Department of Corrections today as well. And again, before we actually get into the presentation, if everyone can just mute themselves, that will be helpful. Today, we will do a quick review of the annual child count survey and how to complete this report within the Grant Management Application Planning System, which is known as GMAP. And my colleague, Wes, please feel free to stop me at any time if anything comes in the chat. And coordinators, please feel free to come off mute if you have any questions or concerns, or try to raise your hand. My hope is by the end of today that each one of you will be able to navigate GMAP successfully and complete your child count report. So let's get started. The purpose of the annual child count report is to provide the U.S. Department of Education with the data and the allocations required by Title I Part A as well as Title I Part D of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, and other federal programs for use in determining state allocations. So, I just want to make it clear for everyone. The annual child count helps to generate your funds and your allocations. The performance report data is your collection of data. So there's two separate entities. The child count, again, I'm just reiterating, this is generating funds for the upcoming year. And the performance report is the collection of data for your Title I Part D students. Okay, this particular slide talks about the focus of the population. And so, as you can tell, for today, we have both state agencies on this webinar because Subpart 1 focuses on adult corrections for Department of Corrections, as well as juvenile corrections, Department of Juvenile Justice. So for this particular webinar, I invited both populations so that way we can just have a big child count meeting and have a discussion. And also make sure to address any questions or concerns you might have regarding child count. The process. So the annual child count process is a pretty huge process because this goes to the U.S. Department of Education as well. So in order to receive funding, you have several steps, and we're just going to go through each step of the process. So the first step is when we say ED, that stands for the U.S. Department of Education. So the U.S. Department of Education distributes the annual child count survey and guidance to Wes and I at the state level, the Kentucky state level. Then the next step is the states collect the child count period. And then the third step is the state education agencies, Wes and I, which is Kentucky in this case, we will submit the child count data and allocations to the U.S. Department of Education. And then the fourth step is the Washington, D.C. and the U.S. Department of Education will prepare the funding tables and the counts will be made available. And then the fifth step is ED will eventually give the preliminary awards and release the funding to the coordinators. Well, us at the state first, and then we will distribute to the coordinators eventually soon. Are there any questions regarding the process before I move on? And if you have questions, please feel free to come off mute. And Wes, again, my colleague Wes, please feel free to stop me at any time. So a lot of times, if you are a new coordinator, you're just unfamiliar of what the child count is. The child count is an annual survey that collects the number of students who are eligible to receive Title I Part D funds in each state. And Title I Part D funds are federal funds. So you want to make sure that you are counting your eligible students correctly. So the eligibility for counting and the eligibility for serving are totally different. And we will certainly talk about the differences between the eligibility for counting and the eligibility for serving a little bit later. So there are some eligibility requirements for the child count. The state agency directors, so when I mention the state agency directors, this consists of Latina, Shannon, and Melissa at DJJ level. And when I mention for DOC, this is Karen, this is Forrest, and Amber Skaggs, which are your state agency directors. So the state agency directors are responsible for providing free public education to children and youth who are in N&D institutions, such as a community day program and adult correctional institution. So the state agency directors are responsible for overseeing and making sure that each DJJ and each DLC facility is meeting requirements. Now, the facility eligibility requirements are that the students must be served if they are in an N&D facility, and the facilities must have an average length of stay of at least 30 days. And so if you look on the right side here, on the other side, this is why it is important that when you are completing your performance report data, and towards that demographic data page, towards the bottom, there is a section that says average length of stay, in an average length of day served, but particularly we are focusing on the average length of stay because the average length of stay must be at least 30 days in order for you to complete 30 days or more in order for you to complete your child count report. Are there any questions again before I move on? And this is particularly why we have you to complete your performance report data first, which is only data collection first before moving into the child count. Questions? Wes, are there any questions?
I'm monitoring the chat. I don't see any questions just yet, Monica.
Okay, thank you so much, Wes. Beforehand, I did mention the eligibility for counting and the eligibility for serving are different. So for the child count, you want to make sure the age for students to be counted in your facility, the child or youth must be 20 years or younger in order to be counted. And students must be enrolled in a regular program of instruction for at least 15 hours a week if in an adult correction facility. And so when I say adult correctional facility, that is referencing for DOC, Department of Corrections. They must have at least 15 hours a week. Now for a DJJ, a juvenile facility, the hours must be at least 20 hours a week in a juvenile facility or a community day program. And again, the age is 20 years or younger. Now, in order to be served, once you receive your funding from the U.S. Department of Education and the state, and you receive your funding, now the age for students to be served is 21 age or younger. So you can serve your students once you receive your allocation and your child count funding. You can serve students up to 21. Meanwhile, right now where we're counting students for eligibility, the age is 20. Are there any questions? Because a lot of times this may cause confusion between the ages. And feel free to come off mute. All right. So hearing none, and I assume this is clear, I just want to reiterate again. So in order to be counted, the students to be counted, you must be 20 years or younger, but to be served, once you receive your child count funding, the age is 21. Now, let's keep in mind that this is a one-day count. The child count for Subpart 1 is a one-day count. And so DOC and DJJ, state agency directors, selects a one-day count period for all eligible institutions. So the state agency selects a one-day count for the facilities. In the past, the state agency directors have either selected a date in November or December. Meanwhile, the state agencies can select any date from January 1st through December 31st, 2024. So it can be any date, and it's just a one-day count. It can be any date from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. So it is very important that when you are state agency directors, when you are selecting this count, that you are selecting a one-day count that has your highest overall enrollment to help generate funds for each DJJ facility as well as each DOC facility. And you want to make sure, according to the Title I Part D guidance and statute, that you are not selecting a weekend or a holiday. but any other day is efficient. Questions? Are there any questions regarding the 1-day count? And again, I can just not say it enough. It is important that you select your highest enrollment 1 count day. And the date has not been selected yet for DJJ or DLC, but they will certainly keep me posted when they have that selection.
Okay, Monica, that was my question. Was did you send that out? Did I not respond to that yet, or is that a okay?
I haven't
Oh.
sent out the dates yet. I was
Okay.
going to send it out immediately after this presentation,
Okay. I
asking
wanted to
which
make sure I
date you
didn't miss
selected.
I
No,
wanted to
you
make sure I
haven't
didn't
missed.
miss it.
Yes, you haven't missed anything.
Okay.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to talk about it first before opening the door. Thank you, Legina. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to actually go into GMAP, and I'm going to walk you through how to complete your actual child count for this year. So give me just a second. And let me know if everyone can still see my screen or not. All right, so I'm assuming yes. So the first thing you want to do is, and I'm using the test site as an example, you want to make sure to just log in first. So in this sense, since Adair is first, just alphabetically, I'm going to use Bradley Stevenson. And this is what the home page looks like when you are completing the child count report. I'm going to select Adair Youth Development Center. And the first thing that pops up is the funding application. So the funding application is going to come in first, but you should be completed with your application. So on the left-hand side over here in the blue area, you have some blue icons, and you want to go to Application Supplements. And you want to make sure that the date has 2025 and it must say active. And you want to click on the Child Count DJJ report. And the first thing you want to do, this is very important. The first thing you want to do is you want the status always says not started, but you want to make sure to change the status to started. A lot of times I receive emails and they're saying, I'm not able to import or input in my information or my numbers. And I always respond back saying, did you change the status? So you got to make sure to change the status. It is very important. So you want to make sure to change the status, and it's going to ask you to confirm the status. And once you change it, you want to press confirm. And the history log, within the history log, you're able to send me a message through GMAP or send your state agency directors a message. And so this is how you can create a message, and it just sends to all the selected people you would like to send a message to. But in this sense, we're going to start with the basis of eligibility. So for the basis of eligibility, and again, the annual child count is a very important federal form. So you want to make sure that you are abiding by all of the requirements. And the first requirement is to make sure that you are providing a regular program of instruction. Now, beforehand, remember we talked about for if you are a DOC institution that you must have 15 hours per week for instruction. If you are a DJJ institution, you must have 20 hours a week. And again, in the beginning of the presentation, the state agency is responsible for providing free and public education. And last, you are responsible for having at least an average length of stay of at least 30 days. So that's why we have you to complete your performance report first, because that's the data collection. So if you have all three requirements, you want to start by selecting the box. Okay, and then next, there's some definitions here. So it wants you to address what type of institution are you? So a lot of times for DJJ or DOC, you're not a neglected institution because neglected is state abandonment of a student who has either death of their parent or neglect from their parent. So a lot of times that's not your selection. Neglected children is mostly tied in with Title I Part A, which is another program that Wes and I work with. But mostly for DJJ and DLC, you are either going to select either institution of delinquent children or a community day program. So in this sense, I'm just going to select an institution for delinquent children and youth as an example. For enrollment under the number of children under age 21 through age 20, age and enrolled in a regular program instruction. So you want to, once the DJJ directors and DLC directors select that one-day count, they might say it's November 5th. So once they select that November 5th date, you want to count all your students for that November 5th date. And say, for example, I had 17 students on November 5th based on the selection from the state agency directors. And the next thing you want to do is you want to multiply the number of days per year that the program operates. And so this is why it is important that you upload your facility calendar, because once you upload your district and facility calendar, now, speaking of calendars, the calendar upload is just only for the DJJ institution. DOC, there is some HIPAA laws, so you guys do not have to upload a calendar. Just based on when we met with the lawyers, there's some HIPAA laws and some requirements that you guys don't have to complete that piece. But if you are a DJJ institution, you must upload your DJJ calendar. And so with that being said, just looking at this calendar, this is the district's calendar. And so you want to make sure that you have the 2024-2025 school year calendar for Adair and Adair Learning Academy. And Lucina, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Just because every year we have about, I would say a third of the child count returned because of this one document. I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate that this is the exact document. Is there any way, is this already uploaded in GMAP, like the needs assessment one?
The template, no, it is not.
Is that possible?
I can possibly work on it for next year. I'm going to write that down as a note.
Okay.
And Wes, my colleague Wes, if you can make a note for me, if we can possibly add this in as a template for child count, the calendar.
That was very helpful for the application. So if we can get that next year, it'd be great. But I just wanted to come on and say that, what she's explaining right now, we have to use this exact template.
Yes.
When it says
this is sent
calendar.
out by KEXAC as part of your memorandum of agreement.
We all get this every spring, the blank template for the next year with our KEXAC documents. Yeah.
That's
already.
correct.
Okay, well, and that's helpful. So everyone that gets that's great. But about a third of people every year, I have to send these back for this one document. So having it in there next year will be great. That'd be very helpful, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will
Thanks,
certainly
Justin.
make that as a note as well to add this template within the child count for next year moving forward. So this child count is very important, that if you are a DJJ facility, if you should upload your calendar. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at instructional days versus your extended days. So those first two columns in the calendar are the only columns that we look at. So looking at the instructional days, we have 176. And looking at the extended days, we have 34. So when you add 176 plus the 34, the total number is 210. Now, again, we do not look at vocational days, vacation days, because students are not receiving services or educational services. And we also don't look at the non-instructional days because students, again, are not receiving educational services for the last two columns. Are there any questions looking at the calendar before we move on? I think there was a hand raised from someone.
It's me, Monica.
Okay.
Ellen. So
Okay.
I always had this question: if your school district has a day, a snow day, for example, or a day that was off for severe weather last Friday, do they need to notify you or amend this calendar and send it back in to anybody, or how's that work? Anybody else ever had that question?
So good question, Ellen. It depends on if during that snow day, were students receiving educational services?
No, let's say it's just a traditional snow day, which means it's a day that's going to be tacked on to the end of the year for the school district to be able to get their required number, 1,062 hours. So a lot of times school districts will amend their calendars in March to include the snow days that they have missed during that year. There are not NTI days.
Okay. So yes, if they are not, again, Ellen, if students are not receiving educational services, and it's just a regular snow day with no educational services being held for that day, yes, they should also revise their calendar for instructional days or extended days, possibly. I hope that makes sense.
Well, those occur usually in January and February. So do you recommend that people send in their adjusted calendars in like March and April, when it's kind of, that you're not going to have any more days out, because it's a day by day situation on whether your district's calling it a snow day or NTI day?
Yes, if they can just revise it and send it in to the best. A lot of times I know that there might be some changes, but if they can just send in the most current revised calendar based on the snow days, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any questions? Any other questions? Just speaking of the calendar. Okay. With me not hearing none, we're going to go back and look at the child count. So just looking at the instructional calendar from Adair, it looks like they had, under the instructional days column, there was 176. And under the extended day column, there was an additional 34 days. So when you add 176 plus the 34, that equals a total of 210. And a lot of times you're going to add in the 210 for the number of days per year that the program operates. And the system should generate it. And so once the system does the math and divides by the standard number of days by 180, the adjusted enrollment is 1983. And again, at the bottom of the child count report, and again, it's just only for DJJ facilities to upload their district calendar to match that middle number for the number of days per year that the program operates. So you're just going to upload your district calendar. Now, again, Karen, Forrest, and Amber, and all DOC institutions, Department of Correction institutions, you do not have to upload your district calendar. Just due to FERPA, you're not responsible for uploading your calendar. Are there any questions for the child count before I move on? Okay, and we're just going to go to the next page. And again, under the related documents, it would like for you to upload. So you just click on this link and you will upload your calendar if you are a DJJ institution. And you can also upload any other documentation. And Ellen brought up a good point regarding snow days. So if you want to add in or write a justification or let me know what happened for the snow days, why students didn't have educational services during those days, or any other documentation you want to add regarding the instructional days, you can upload that information here. And it will just save in the system. And again, this KDE checklist, this is for me to complete. So if I have any concerns or any questions regarding your child count numbers, or if something doesn't match based on your calendar for DJJ, this is where I'm going to complete the KDE checklist. And then now we're back at the child count DJJ report, the main sections. And when you are finished completing this report, before you press complete, the main thing you want is you want to look over here in this middle column where it says validation messages. And you want to click under all, and you want to go under the validation messages. So we do have one error, and the error is that we did not upload for DJJ facility and not DLC. We didn't upload the district calendar. So you must upload the district calendar before you can press submit or complete it. So once you have uploaded your calendar, you also want to make sure to change the status to completed. And so I tried to change the status to completed, but the system would not allow me to change the status because I still have one validation error exists. And the validation error that exists is that I did not upload the calendar. But I just wanted to reiterate that. Are there any questions for completing the child count report before we move back to the presentation? And Wes, feel free to let me know if there are
no
any
questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay. All right. And so just going back to the presentation, again, you want to make sure, and I will certainly send this out to you. This just is an overall slide. And so if you're either DJJ or DOC, this important slide just walks you through the 11 steps on how to complete your child count completely. So if you want to screenshot this, this will be helpful because it just gives you step-by-step procedures on how to complete your annual child count. And I will also mail it out to you as well. So let's discuss some common issues. Some common issues are forgetting to change the status to draft started when completing your child count, using a different date instead of the date selected by DJJ or DLC. Say, for example, if you're DJJ, you might have a part of DJJ, your date might be November 5th. But if you are DLC, your date might be March 13th. So each state agency is going to have a different date for their highest enrollment. So for only the DJJ institutions, on the uploaded school calendar, not having the corrected school year or the district name added within the district uploaded calendar. So you want to make sure at the top of that uploaded calendar to have the correct school year, district name, and facility name as well. And at the end, not changing the status to completed when you are finished. So let's talk about some general questions. And overall, here are some general questions that we might have when completing the annual child count. Question 1. Is the state agency responsible for providing free public education to children and youth in this program? And everyone, please feel free to come off mute or add your answer within the chat. Is the state agency responsible for providing free and public education to children and youth in this N&D or Title I Part D Subpart 1 program?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And yes is the correct answer. Yes. And it is according to the statute, ESEA section 1411. Right along to our next question, question 2. Have the students in the institution been adjudicated or delinquent or in need of supervision? And again, the big word is adjudicated and delinquent. Is this a yes or no? Okay, please feel free to come off mute or let me know. Wes, please let me know what are some of the common answers to the question 2.
Got several people saying yes.
Okay.
Yep, about 3, 4, or 5 folks saying yes.
Okay, thank you. And then so if you said yes, that is correct. According to ESEA section 1432, the term, and let me move this over. The term adjudicated generally references judicial determination by court order. So adjudication means court ordered rather than the determination by just simply a parent or guardian. The child must be delinquent or in need of supervision. So adjudicated, students in order to be counted for the child count must be adjudicated, which means court ordered by a judge or judicial determination. Questions? Are there any questions? Okay. All right, so we're going to move right along to our next question, question 3. Do the students in the institution have an average length of stay of at least 30 days? Yes or no? And I have an additional question for the audience. Where do you find, which report shows you the average length of stay? Which report is that?
We've got a couple folks that have responded yes in the chat there.
Okay. And again, which report shows you the average length of stay?
And Cameron said performance report. And a couple other people saying yes.
Yes, it is the performance report. So if you said performance report, you are correct. And again, yes, to all those folks that answered yes, the average length of stay should be at least 30 days in order to complete, and it's also from the performance report data. Under that demographic data page at the bottom, there are 2 sections that says served and the average length of stay. And so you want to make sure from looking at your performance report data that the length of stay is at least 30 days. So looking at question 4, are the students enrolled in a program of instruction for at least 20 hours per week? Is the question yes or no? Yes or no? And Wes, feel free to let me know what's coming in the chat.
We've got some folks responding yes to this one.
Okay.
Several
So-
yeses so far.
Okay. So yes, for question 4, if you answered yes, you are correct. So according to ESEA section 34 CFR 291, for DJJ programs, 20 hours per week in an institution for an N&D youth. So you must meet 20 hours per week for instruction and education services for DJJ programs. Now, if you are a part of DLC programs under Flores, Karen, and Amber Skaggs, then the requirements are 15 hours per week if you are in an adult correctional institution. So if you answer yes, you certainly got the question correct. All right. So question 5. Does the program serve students who are under age 21? Does the program serve students who are under the age of 21?
Got some couple yeses coming in there
Okay.
in the chat.
All right. So if you answered yes, that is correct. So according to ESEA section 34 CFR 291 again, youth can be served up to 21 years or younger. So served under up to 21 years or younger. Meanwhile, to be counted for the child count, the age is 20 years or younger. So you can serve up to 21, but to be counted, students to be counted for this child count report, the age is 20. All right, and so we're getting down. Question 6 is our last question. And a lot of times I receive this question a lot. So can students be counted if they have received their GED and are still receiving educational services? What do you think the question is? Yes or no? Not the question, but the answer. Yes or no?
We've got one yes coming in so far in the chat.
Okay.
Actually, a couple. I lied. There's a couple yeses.
Okay. All right.
Some
So,
more yeses coming in.
all right. So looking at question 6, it is regarding GED. So according to the non-regulatory guidance in F3, a student age 21 or younger who is otherwise eligible to receive services under Subpart 1, who has earned a GED or an other type of high school diploma equivalency, but takes courses that lead to a high school diploma, is eligible to receive Subpart 1 services. So earning a high school diploma falls under the definition of a regular program of instruction. So in this sense, if a student has a GED or a high school diploma and the student is under the age 20, they can be counted. All right. Additional questions? We also have some child count resources, and I'm just going to share those resources with you. If I can pull them up here. Oops. So the first thing you want to do if you have questions for completing your child count report, you want to go to the Kentucky Department of Education's website. And if you look under the website, there are some resources on the right-hand side. And so we have some application resources, some related resources, performance report resources. But in this sense, for today and for this report, we are talking about child count. So we have our child count guide, and we also have our child count survey PowerPoint. So you want to click on the guide, and I'm going to go through the guide with you. The guide is very helpful because it walks you through step by step on how to complete your child count if you are a DJJ and DOC facility. And again, it just summarizes everything. It's a helpful document. We also have the PowerPoint uploaded for you. And again, from Washington, D.C., IndyTAC, we have a tip sheet. And this is hot off the press because this tip sheet, it helps you to identify your students properly. So we talked about adjudication. This tip sheet is very helpful because it just walks you through and it has some general questions. And this is from IndyTAC. And when we mention IndyTAC, this is our team from the U.S. Department of Education. And it just walks you through. This is a tip sheet from them. It walks you through on how to specifically make sure you are counting your students for the child count report properly. We also have our Google Classroom, and hopefully it will come up soon. And so we have our Google Classroom, and within our Google Classroom, we have certain areas. So we have a related resource area, a discussion area. We have the finance resource area, performance report, and then we also have child count area section and monitoring section. So we have all of these resources available to help you to complete anything regarding your application, performance report, as well as child count. So we have a lot of resources available. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. My contact information is listed here. And we don't know the date actually yet from the state agency directors. It's their decision to pick and select a date with the highest enrollment in order to generate funding. So the date, it says Friday, December 6th, but the date could be subject to change based on the state agency discretion. And again, are there any questions?
Monica,
All right. Yes.
this is Karen from DOC.
Okay.
Could you just clarify for me the eligibility for counting the ages 20 years or younger, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
does that mean when they reach their 20th birthday?
So when they reach their 20th birthday, they can still be counted. Now, when they reach their 21st birthday, they cannot be counted.
Okay, so they can be counted through 20.
Through 20, yes.
They
They students,
21.
yes, under 20. Served, it's confusing. Served up to 21. Counted for the age 20.
Okay, so they can be considered, they can be served until they reach their 22nd birthday through their
21st birthday.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm getting confused myself. So yes, so served up to the end of the age 21st,
Okay.
21st birthday. So once they turn 22, they cannot be served anymore.
Good. Okay.
But counted wise, students can only be counted to age 20.
Up to their 21st birthday.
Yes.
21. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Yes. And feel free, Karen, if you are have an institution like that, feel free to reach out to me further, and we can certainly look at their counting more specifically.
So Monica, just to clarify, kind of, I know I get confused about this, and I always have to keep looking at it. There was a comment that just came in from Ellen Hoffman. So just to clarify, tell me if I'm getting this right. They can be served when they're 21 up until the point, like up in the entire year that they're 21 years of age, they can be served. But when they hit their 22nd birthday, they can no longer be served. But in order to be counted to generate funds, that can only happen when they're 20 years old, right?
Correct. Okay. Ellen, that is correct. Correct.
I think Ellen had maybe had a different sort of question, but just to clarify that, I think we're all on the same page now as how it works. That's a little bit confusing. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome. It does get a chance to be confusing between the age 20. So counted all the way up to 20 for child count purposes for completing this report. Served to the age 21, but once the student turns 22, they cannot be served. So again, just to reiterate, if you have questions regarding age, please certainly reach out to me further. But yes, you guys are correct. Are there any other additional questions?
So Monica, I'm going to put this in the chat. Make sure this is clear, and I've got this right if you would. So there are a couple questions. So they can be served at 21, but not at age 22. They can be counted for funding purposes at 20, but not at age 21.
Correct. That is correct, Wes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other additional questions? Or is there anything I can help you with? And again, before I let you guys go, I just want to reiterate, it's also imperative, this is just a reminder, that you look at your performance report too as well to make sure that the average length of stay is at least over 30 days. If your average length of stay for the performance report is not over 30 days, then you are not eligible to complete a child count period. And you should receive Title I Part D funding. All right. All right, Lachina, Shannon, Ellen, anyone from DJJ, is there anything you want to share? Or DLC, is there anything you want to share as well?
Well, no, you covered everything, and child count training was great. Thank you so much. We look forward to receiving the recording. I think you send that out usually to us, and you answered all my questions right now, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Karen, it looks like you have a question.
No, you've cleared up several questions I had, and thank you for the presentation today.
You're welcome. And I will certainly email this out to everyone. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thank you.